Welcome to Dreams of Duty. This is your time to let go, a journey of calm and serenity. Follow the rhythm of my voice into deep rest, with every note of the music designed with soothing frequencies, allowing your body, mind, and soul to drift into perfect relaxation. And now take a deep breath in and breath out. Breath in and breath out. And now let us begin with our journey. It's early dawn on the 10th of December, 1941. The sea stretches like a steel-grey mirror under the pale light of morning, calm yet deceptively cold and harsh. Off the coast of Malaya, a British naval task force cuts through the water with disciplined precision. Leading the formation is the HMS Prince of Wales, her immense hull reflecting the faint glimmer of the rising sun. Alongside her, the battle cruiser HMS Repulse moves with measured grace, its deck bristling with heavy artillery and the determined figures of sailors readying for the unknown. Each vessel in the fleet maintains its place, forming a silent wall of steel, a bulwark against the vast expanse of ocean beyond. On board Prince of Wales, Captain John Jack Leach moves along the bridge, eyes scanning the horizon, noting the position of every ship, every potential threat. The tension is palpable, the kind that presses against your chest without warning. His officers report readiness at each station. All stations maintain vigilance. Eyes on the sky, he commands, his voice steady yet edged with concern. The crew, trained to act with efficiency, responds with precision, knowing that even a single misstep could cost lives. Suddenly, the calm is broken. Sir Tenedos is signaling distress. An officer shouts from the communication station. Leach's jaw tightens as he grips the receiver. Bloody fools. We're under radio silence. This better be good, he mutters under his breath. Moments later, Admiral Phillips' voice crackles urgently over the line. Tenedos is under attack by Japanese bombers. The realization hits hard. Task Force Z, caught in the open waters of the Malayan coast, is now fully exposed to enemy action. Leach feels a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. There is no turning back. The low rumble of aircraft engines grows louder, a mechanical roar that reverberates through the air. Japanese planes pierce the clouds, dozens of them, each formation precise and deadly. The first wave dives at Repulse, the older battle cruiser, whose crew scrambles in response. Bombs tear through the sky, screaming down toward their target. The initial explosions rock the ship violently. Amidships, a bomb strikes with devastating force, sending plumes of water and fire into the air. Sailors are thrown to the deck, screams echoing over the roar of the engines and the detonation of shells. Captain Tennant shouts orders, but the deck is chaos incarnate, smoke and debris filling every corner. On Prince of Wales, Leach rallies his officers. Action stations. Repel aircraft. His words cut through the panic like a blade. Every gunner, every loader, every sailor understands the stakes. Anti-aircraft guns roar to life, tracers streaking upward, seeking the black silhouettes of incoming Japanese bombers. The enemy is fast, disciplined, and relentless. Their pincer formation is designed to split the defenses, overwhelming the British firepower with sheer numbers. Each approaching plane is a lethal calculus of speed, altitude, and trajectory. Seconds stretch, each one a lifetime, as sailors load shells, brace for impact, and track the enemy's movements with a combination of fear and resolve. The Japanese pilots push forward, undeterred by the wall of gunfire. Their bombs fall in sequence, torpedoes skim across the water, and chaos reigns. The Prince of Wales maneuvers desperately, attempting to evade incoming torpedoes while maintaining a defensive position. The sea around the ships churns with the wake of explosions, columns of water rising like deadly towers around the hulls. Sailors struggle against the rising waters, wading through waist-deep flooding to maintain guns, shore up bulkheads, and save their ship from sinking. Emergency pumps work furiously, but water seeps through every breach. Relentless and insidious dot. Above them, the sky is a theater of destruction. Japanese planes weave through the anti-aircraft fire, some damaged, some falling into the waves, others pressing forward. The smell of cordite, salt water, and smoke mixes in the air. Crewmen fall where they stand, wounded, bleeding, yet still holding to duty. Orders echo through the decks, over the roar of the engines and the shrieks of the wounded. Flood the void spaces. Keep her level. Leech commands, understanding that even a minor tilt could spell disaster amidst torpedo strikes. Repulse, though battered, continues to fight valiantly. Captain Tennant demonstrates remarkable seamanship, maneuvering his ship through a gauntlet of torpedoes, dodging one after another with calculated precision. The battle is a deadly dance, the choreography of survival written in steel, salt water, and courage. Every man knows the limits of human endurance are being tested, yet still they press on, gripping railings, pumping shells, and manning guns with the resolve of those who understand that retreat is impossible. By mid-morning, the assault intensifies. The Japanese squadrons split and regroup, circling the British ships with deadly intent. Bombs fall high above, from 12,000 feet. Shells burst around decks, and every inch of the ships is a battleground. The Prince of Wales and Repulse are pushed to their limits, each hit leaving gaping holes in hulls and tearing at morale. Sailors scramble, not only to fire weapons, but to save the lives of their comrades, forming chains to pull the wounded to safety, jamming pumps to hold back the encroaching sea, and attempting to maintain communication in the chaos dowers into the battle. The relentless attack leaves both ships critically damaged. Torpedo hits, high explosive bombs, and strafing runs have taken a devastating toll. Captain Leach and Captain Tennant assess the destruction with grim determination. Both men understand that survival now relies on bravery, quick thinking, and sheer luck. Orders are shouted over the din of battle, life rafts are deployed, and the men prepare to abandon ship if necessary. The sea itself becomes both enemy and savior, offering a perilous refuge as the ships begin their final struggle against the inevitable dot. As the sun climbs, smoke curls from the decks, water rushes into engine rooms, and the horizon is dotted with the silhouettes of Japanese aircraft still circling. The morning off Malaya has become a crucible of fire and steel, testing the courage and endurance of every sailor aboard Prince of Wales and Repulse. Each man fights not only for survival, but for the honor of his ship. his country, and the memory of those who have already fallen. The stage is set for tragedy, heroism, and the stark reality of naval warfare in the Pacific. By mid-morning, the calm of the Malayan waters has vanished completely. The HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse are engulfed in a maelstrom of speed, smoke, and terror. Japanese aircraft swoop low over the waves, their engines screaming like mechanical banshees. The first torpedo squadrons approach, flying in tight formation, every pilot focused on precision and destruction. From the deck of the Prince of Wales, the sailors strain their eyes against the sun glinting off the water, watching the deadly approach with growing apprehension. Captain Leach moves along the bridge, barking orders with calculated urgency. All stations brace for impact. Track incoming torpedoes. Fire at will. The crew obeys with disciplined panic, gunners adjusting aim as tracers streak into the sky, hoping to force the attackers off course. Yet the speed and skill of the Japanese pilots render most of their fire ineffective. Shells explode harmlessly in the air or splash into the sea behind their targets. Repulse, despite being older and less heavily armed, is a study in audacity. Captain Tennant steers her with remarkable skill, weaving through the torpedo tracks like a dancer avoiding blades. Each torpedo that strikes across the water is a deadly messenger, leaving a trail of bubbles and waves that marks its lethal intent. Sailors cling to railings, sliding across wet decks, dodging the debris of near misses, while engineers work feverishly below, pumping water from flooded compartments to keep their ship afloat. The first torpedo strikes the Prince of Wales amidships, punching a jagged hole through her hull. Water floods the compartments instantly, sweeping sailors off their feet. Panic threatens to overtake order as men scramble to secure watertight doors and operate emergency pumps. The ship lists slightly to port, but Leach refuses to yield. Steady, keep her level, he commands, his voice carrying authority over the roar of explosions and the chaos of panicked shouts. Moments later, a second torpedo slams into the stern, ripping through the hull with devastating force. Electrical systems fail, steering motors die, and the massive battleship becomes a sitting duck. Captain Leach rallies the remaining crew, issuing desperate instructions to maintain what little maneuverability remains. Flooding is now relentless, and sailors wade through chest-deep water, manning guns and tending to the wounded. Amid the chaos, small arms fire erupts across the deck, targeting the low-flying attackers that press relentlessly forward. Meanwhile, the Japanese continue their calculated assault. Betty bombers dive with terrifying precision, dropping torpedoes in a synchronized sequence designed to overwhelm even the most disciplined crew. Smoke and fire mix with the salt-laden air as explosions tear through decks and superstructures. Every hit shakes the ship violently, tossing men across the floor and leaving gaping holes in steel walls. The sheer force of the bombardment tests not only the strength of the ships, but the endurance of every sailor aboard. Repulse continues her desperate maneuvers. Tennant's audacity and seamanship are unmatched. Dodging torpedo after torpedo, his crew working in tandem with uncanny precision. Still, the relentless waves of Japanese aircraft force him into difficult choices. Each evasive action risks exposing a new section of the ship to destruction. Gunners fire frantically, their shells racing into the sky, attempting to intercept bombers that seem almost untouchable. The crew fights against the impossible, courage and desperation blending into a single, unyielding will to survive. The first wave of attack subsides, leaving the ships battered but afloat. Yet the Japanese are far from finished. High-level bombers climb to altitude, releasing 500-kilogram bombs with deadly intent. Their timing is calculated, their aim precise, and the explosions begin to puncture decks and hulls alike. Smoke coils into the sky, mingling with the mist over the ocean, marking the Prince of Wales and Repulse as prime targets. Flooding spreads rapidly, machinery groans under pressure, and the crew struggles to maintain control over what is quickly becoming a sinking fortress of steel. Captain Leach makes the impossible decision to attempt a partial withdrawal, steering the crippled Prince of Wales towards Singapore. The task force desperately tries to provide cover, but the distance and speed of the Japanese aircraft make defense nearly impossible. Lines of communication stretch thin as signals are sent and received amidst the chaos. Sailors, exhausted and soaked, continue to fire and fight, knowing that each action is a gamble against overwhelming odds. Finally, as the noon sun climbs high, the last waves of Japanese aircraft complete their attack. The Prince of Wales and Repulse are critically damaged, their decks scarred with craters and their hulls breached in multiple locations. Captain Leach and Captain Tennant assess the devastating damage. The ships are barely afloat, their crews exhausted and mourning fallen comrades. Every man aboard knows that the struggle is far from over, yet the will to survive drives them forward. The sea around Malaya has become a testament to courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding brutality of war at sea. By early afternoon, the battered Prince of Wales is barely maintaining her heading. Water surges through multiple breached compartments, and the once-proud decks are strewn with debris and fallen sailors. Captain Leach, eyes sharp despite exhaustion, moves across the bridge, issuing orders with calm urgency. Check all pumps. Keep her level as best you can. Fire at any incoming aircraft. The Japanese are relentless. Torpedo bombers return in a second, more aggressive wave, flying low over the waves with uncanny precision. From the bridge, Leach can see the deadly arcs of the incoming torpedoes cutting through the water. Anti-aircraft gunners fire continuously, tracers streaking toward the attackers. But the speed and maneuverability of the planes make each shot a near miss. Repulse fights valiantly beside her sister ship. Captain Tennant navigates through the torpedo tracks, his skillful maneuvers avoiding multiple hits that could have torn the ship apart. Still, the cumulative damage is mounting. Explosions rock the vessel, ripping open steel plates and sending showers of water and fire across the deck. Sailors cling to railings, sliding across slick surfaces as smoke and oil mix with the spray of the sea dot. At 12:50 p.m., the Prince of Wales is struck by a massive 500 kg bomb. The impact detonates near the aft gun turret, causing catastrophic flooding and tearing through her superstructure. Alarms blare across the ship as crew members struggle to contain fires and pump water from the engine room. Leach moves from station to station, shouting orders, his presence steadying the men around him. Despite the onslaught, the gunners maintain their determination. Tracers light up the sky, as they fire at any plane within range. One Betty bomber is hit mid-air, spiraling out of control before crashing into the waves. The small victory is fleeting. The relentless Japanese attack shows no sign of slowing. Torpedo tracks converge on both ships from multiple angles, and the sailors brace for impact. Repulse is struck repeatedly, her rudder jammed, forcing her into a dangerous circle. Tennant commands with authority, each evasive maneuver saving lives, yet exposing new vulnerabilities. Crewmen shout warnings, man guns, and attempt repairs, but the assault is unyielding. A torpedo breaches her port side, flooding compartments and throwing men across the deck. The ship begins listing dangerously as smoke chokes the air. Back on the Prince of Wales, water surges through the lower decks, and engines struggle against rising pressure from flooded compartments. Leach issues one final attempt to maneuver. Coordinating with the remaining ships of Task Force Z, the men scramble across the sloping deck, straining ropes, cutting life rafts loose, and helping wounded sailors into makeshift safety. Despite their efforts, the scale of destruction is overwhelming. At 1:05 p.m., the last of the Japanese torpedo bombers release their payload. Explosions ripple through both ships, the deafening force of impact shaking steel and marrow alike. The Prince of Wales begins a decisive list to port. Decks buckle, machinery groans, and the crew realizes the inevitable. Captain Leach, standing on the bridge with Admiral Phillips, looks over the chaotic scene, knowing their pride and courage cannot save the vessel from the relentless assault. Leach gives the order to abandon ship. Sailors scramble across gangways and ropes to the destroyer express, some slipping into the oil-streaked waters and swimming desperately to safety. Despite the chaos, discipline holds. Small groups of men form orderly lines, helping one another amid the raging destruction. The Prince of Wales, wounded beyond repair, begins her final descent into the sea. Minutes later, the stern lifts briefly above the waves before slipping under completely. The ship's bow follows, disappearing beneath the waters of the Malayan coast. Smoke, fire, and shattered steel marked the site where the once mighty battleship had stood. The Repulse, similarly ravaged, lists heavily, her crew now following Tennant's final orders to abandon ship. The survivors cling to life rafts, the sea around them a dangerous mixture of debris, oil, and scattered personnel. Amid the wreckage, the sheer scale of Japanese coordination and determination is evident. The air still hums with the noise of departing aircraft, leaving a grim silence over the sinking ships. For the men who survive, the memories of explosions, fire, and the courage of their comrades will remain indelible. Captain Leach and Tennant are among the last to leave their respective vessels, saluting their crews and honoring the sacrifice of every man lost to the sea. The Malayan waters, once calm and blue, are now forever scarred by one of the most devastating naval engagements of World War II. As the last remnants of the Prince of Wales and Repulse disappear beneath the waves, the survivors find themselves adrift in the open sea. Smoke and oil cover the water, and debris from the destroyed ships float around them. Sailors cling desperately to life rafts, pieces of wreckage, and each other. Shivering in the warm but treacherous Malayan waters, Captain Leach, soaked and exhausted, surveys the scene from a small lifeboat. Around him, men call out names, search for comrades, and try to stay together amidst the floating wreckage. Despite the horror, discipline and camaraderie remain. Officers and petty officers organize groups, guiding sailors toward the remaining life rafts and the distant horizon where other destroyers might appear. The Destroyer Express and the Electra work tirelessly to pick up survivors. Small boats are lowered and ropes thrown into the water, yet the operation is perilous. Explosions from burning oil and sporadic enemy aircraft overhead keep the rescuers alert and fearful. Waves crash over those in the water, separating friends and swallowing the weak and injured. Men are pulled aboard with trembling hands and gasping breaths. Some are barely conscious, suffering from hypothermia, shock, or injuries sustained during the attacks. Medics work frantically, treating burns, lacerations, and broken bones with whatever supplies remain. Every moment counts as the sea claims lives with cold efficiency. Amid the chaos, stories of bravery emerge. One sailor recounts holding a wounded comrade above water for hours, refusing to let go despite exhaustion. Another officer organizes the distribution of water rations, ensuring each survivor receives enough to sustain life until they can reach Singapore. Small acts of heroism, unnoticed at the time, save lives that will be remembered for decades by late afternoon. Most of the survivors have been gathered, though dozens are still unaccounted for. The Electra radios Task Force Z headquarters, reporting the devastating losses. Officers compile lists of casualties and survivors, their faces grave as they realize the magnitude of the disaster. Both the Prince of Wales and Repulse are gone, leaving only memory and scattered debris behind. Captain Leach and Admiral Phillips remain on deck, quietly saluting the empty sea where their ships once sailed. Leach speaks softly, his voice lost in the wind. "We did all we could. May they rest knowing we fought to the last." The surviving sailors, huddled together, hear the words and find a strange comfort in their captain's stoicism. As night falls, the Malayan Coast Guard lights appear in the distance. Rescue boats ferry the exhausted survivors to safety, their spirits battered but alive. The water is calmer now, but the memories of torpedo explosions, strafing aircraft, and the screams of men lost will haunt those who survived. Stories of heroism, quick thinking, and unbreakable courage spread through the survivors, forming the foundation of Task Force Z's enduring legacy. Though the Prince of Wales and Repulse are gone, the bravery of their crews becomes a symbol of steadfast resistance against overwhelming odds. Leach, Tennant, and the remaining officers vow to honor the memory of their fallen sailors. Each survivor carries the scars of battle, a reminder of the cost of war and the courage required to face impossible odds. Task Force Z may have fallen, but the spirit of its men endures. The sun rises over the Malayan coast, casting a pale light on the scattered debris of Task Force Z survivors, huddled on the decks of the Electra and Express. Gaze toward the horizon where the HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse had vanished just hours earlier. The shock of the previous day's events hangs heavy in the air. The sailors' expressions a mixture of grief, exhaustion, and disbelief. Admiral Sir Tom Phillips stands silently on the bridge of the Electra, his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him, Captain Leach keeps a watchful eye on the remaining survivors, making mental notes of the injured and the unaccounted for. Reports have started coming in, tallying the missing and the confirmed dead. Hundreds of men are lost to the sea, their fates sealed in the waters they had once sailed with pride. Back on land, news of the disaster spreads quickly. In Singapore, military headquarters and the Royal Navy are plunged into crisis mode. The sinking of two major capital ships at the hands of Japanese torpedo bombers sends shockwaves through British command. Analysts and strategists convene to evaluate the failure. Radar blind spots, underestimated enemy air power, and the vulnerability of ships without air cover emerge as central points of discussion. Politicians in London receive the news with a mixture of anger and concern. The loss of the Prince of Wales in Repulse is more than a tactical defeat. It is a blow to morale across the British Empire. Newspaper headlines decry the tragedy, emphasizing both the heroism of the sailors and the devastating capabilities of the Japanese forces. Public sentiment swings between admiration for the courage of the crews and fear of further losses in the Pacific theater. Meanwhile, survivors of Task Force Z are transported to hospitals and temporary accommodations. They recount the battle to medical officers and interviewers, describing in meticulous detail the aerial onslaught, the torpedo strikes, and the desperate maneuvers that had saved some but doomed many. Their testimonies contribute to an evolving understanding of modern naval warfare, highlighting the deadly effectiveness of coordinated air attacks against surface ships. Without adequate air cover, Captain Tennant of the Repulse becomes a symbol of exceptional seamanship. His audacious maneuvers, which allowed the Repulse to avoid numerous torpedo hits, are praised in military reports and later commemorated in naval history texts. Tennant, however, remains haunted by the men he could not save, the screams he could not stop, and the sense of helplessness that pervaded the final moments on board his ship. On the broader strategic front, the Japanese gains confidence. The successful sinking of two major British ships demonstrates the effectiveness of their aerial and torpedo capabilities, reshaping naval doctrines in the Pacific. Allied commanders must now consider new strategies, including stronger air patrols, better coordination between ships and aircraft, and the urgent need to reinforce vulnerable positions across Southeast Asia. Survivors like Captain Leach and Admiral Phillips carry forward the lessons of that fateful day. They brief new crews, emphasizing vigilance, coordination, and the human cost of underestimating an enemy. Each story of bravery, gunners firing despite imminent death, sailors helping injured comrades through officers leading men to life. Rafts becomes part of the oral history of the Royal Navy. Despite the tragedy, bonds formed in the fire of battle endure. Survivors maintained correspondence for years, honoring fallen comrades and sharing memories of heroism, sacrifice, and resilience. In later decades, memorials are erected to commemorate the Prince of Wales and Repulse, ensuring that the valor of the men who served aboard them is never forgotten. In the end, the loss of Task Force Z is both a somber reminder of war's brutality and a testament to the courage and determination of the sailors who faced Neapolitan death with resolve and dignity. Their sacrifice shapes future naval strategy, inspires generations of officers, and cements their place in the annals of maritime history. The events of December 10, 1941 remain a defining moment in World War II, illustrating the deadly power of aerial torpedo attacks and the indomitable human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. The news of the Prince of Wales and Repulse sinking reverberates across the globe, reaching military headquarters, government offices, and newspapers with equal force. In London, the Admiralty convenes an emergency council. Senior officers, including members of the naval staff, gather in the war room to analyze the unprecedented loss of 2 capital ships without traditional surface engagement. Discussions are tense, voices raised, hands pointing at charts and maps that now bear a tragic stain on the East Indies theater. Admiral Sir Dudley Pound, First Sea Lord, addresses the room. "Gentlemen, the situation in the Far East has changed overnight. Our assumptions about Japanese air power were dangerously flawed. The Royal Navy cannot, and will not, operate without air cover against an enemy capable of launching coordinated torpedo strikes at this range." Murmurs of agreement fill the room. Lessons must be drawn quickly, but the weight of the lives lost tempers every decision. Across the British Empire, news spreads through newspapers and radio broadcasts. Headlines scream of disaster off Malaya and Royal Navy ships, sunk in devastating air attack. Public sentiment is a mix of shock, grief, and fury. Families of the sailors are notified, their private grief made public by the press. Meanwhile, morale among troops and colonial administrators wavers as the Japanese threat in Southeast Asia becomes more tangible than ever. In Singapore, Governor Sir Shenton Thomas grapples with the implications of the disaster. Defensive plans for Malaya and the harbor of Singapore are immediately reassessed. Airfields are reinforced where possible, anti-aircraft batteries repositioned, and reconnaissance flights intensified. Yet the limitations of the British position are stark. Japanese air superiority, coupled with the vulnerability of capital ships to torpedo bombers, signals that traditional naval dominance can no longer be assumed. Across the globe, Japanese command celebrates the success of the operation. Imperial Navy officers convene to analyze the efficiency of the coordinated attack. The sinking of 2 major ships confirms the potency of the Japanese aerial torpedo program and validates months of intensive pilot training. Strategic planners revise operational doctrines, emphasizing combined air-sea operations and demonstrating the psychological impact such victories have on enemy forces. For the Royal Navy, the consequences are immediate and far-reaching. Commanders realize that future operations must account for the new reality. Aircraft have become decisive weapons, capable of sinking battleships without surface engagement. Strategies are rewritten, focusing on protecting fleets with carriers, extending reconnaissance networks, and developing counter-tactics for torpedo bombers. Training programs for gunners and radar operators are intensified to mitigate similar losses in future. Engagements, politically, the disaster sparks debate in the British Parliament. Questions are raised about preparedness, intelligence, and leadership. Critics argue that the Admiralty underestimated the Japanese and relied too heavily on traditional notions of naval power. Advocates for reform push for accelerated aircraft carrier construction, improved coordination between air and naval forces, and enhanced communications for task forces operating in contested waters. Internationally, The loss of Prince of Wales and repulse emboldens Japan. Allies, observing the vulnerability of British forces in Southeast Asia, reconsider their own naval deployments. The psychological impact on both sides: fear among Allied sailors, confidence among Japanese commanders reshapes the early stages of the Pacific War. Japanese propaganda highlights the triumph as a symbol of naval ingenuity and tactical superiority, while Allied strategists are forced into urgent reassessments of force distribution and operational doctrine. Among the survivors, personal and professional lessons are etched indelibly. Officers like Captain Tennant and Captain Leach are tasked with debriefing crews, analyzing the events of that day to prevent similar catastrophes. Sailors recount their experiences, offering first-hand insights into the effectiveness of torpedo patterns, anti-aircraft fire, and damage control under fire. These narratives feed directly into training manuals, war college curricula, and tactical simulations designed to prepare the Royal Navy for a new era of warfare. Ultimately, the sinking of the Prince of Wales and repulse marks a pivotal turning point. It signals the end of an era dominated by battleships and underscores the rise of air power as the defining factor in naval engagements. The lessons learned shaped naval operations for the remainder of World War II, influencing strategy, tactics, ship design, and the very philosophy of sea power. The bravery and sacrifice of those lost aboard the two ships become a solemn standard against which future actions are measured, their legacy enduring as both caution and inspiration. As the Prince of Wales and repulse sink beneath the waves, survivors cling to life in the churning waters off the coast of Malaya. Amidst oil slicks, debris, and the cries of men struggling to stay afloat, individual acts of courage and quick thinking emerge. Ordinary sailors, petty officers, and Marines, many with no training in emergency survival at sea, display extraordinary resilience and determination, leading by example. Captain Leach stays with his men until the very end. He assists wounded sailors into life rafts, checks the condition of the ship's last remaining lifeboats, and ensures that no man is left behind unnecessarily. Though the odds of survival are slim, his presence instills a measure of calm in the chaos, his voice cutting through the roar of the sea and the distant echo of explosions. For the sailors, seeing their captain face the same dangers as them becomes a source of inspiration. A reminder that leadership is not only about orders, but about shared risk. Petty Officer Jameson, stationed in the engine room moments before the torpedo strikes, becomes an unlikely hero. As water floods the compartments, he organizes trapped crew members, helping them find escape hatches and maneuvering through waist-deep water. Using improvised flotation devices, lifeboat canvas, and even overturned crates, he shepherds men toward the deck, saving dozens who might otherwise have been lost. His quick thinking demonstrates that heroism does not always come with a rank. It emerges from the will to survive and protect others. Above deck, gunners like able Seaman Roberts continue to fire at incoming aircraft despite imminent destruction. Even as the ship lists dramatically to port, they maintain discipline and focus, their determination a final gesture of defiance against the relentless assault. Some manage to take down enemy planes, others simply hold their ground, providing cover for fellow sailors attempting to reach lifeboats. Each act small or large, contributes to the survival of others. A chain of courage woven in the heart of catastrophe. Amid the chaos, stories of camaraderie abound. Sailors assist wounded comrades, share rations and fresh water, and offer words of encouragement even as the oil-slicked waters claim their shipmates. One Marine, Sergeant Harding, lifts a sailor with a broken leg into a raft, repeatedly diving into the sea to rescue others. Meanwhile, a radio operator clings to floating debris, tapping out emergency signals in Morse code in the hope of directing nearby destroyers toward survivors. Every act, no matter how modest, is amplified by the dire circumstances. For many, the psychological strain is as dangerous as the physical threat. Panic and despair ripple through the water, threatening to overwhelm the men. It is the selfless leadership, clear-headed problem-solving, and camaraderie that prevent despair from consuming the survivors. Sailors instinctively form groups, linking arms or floating in circles to conserve energy and maintain morale. Stories of men sharing jackets, oilskins, and even simple words of reassurance echo through survivor accounts long after the battle as the hours pass. Allied ships in the area, alerted by radio signals, navigate the treacherous waters to pick up survivors. HMS Express, despite sustaining damage in the evacuation, becomes a lifeline, rescuing scores of sailors and ferrying them to safety. Every survivor brought aboard represents a testament to human courage under fire. The sailors' recollections later emphasize not only the horror of the attack, but also the profound bond formed in the fight for survival, a bond that transcends rank and duty. Even in tragedy, moments of valor shine. One young sailor, barely 19, manages to drag two shipmates to a life raft despite being struck in the shoulder by debris. Another, a petty officer with decades of experience, coordinates the loading of injured onto makeshift rafts, while simultaneously assisting the wounded in the water. Each account contributes to the historical record, painting a vivid picture of heroism that endures beyond the loss of the ships themselves. The legacy of personal bravery aboard the Prince of Wales and Repulse becomes a cornerstone of Royal Navy history. Reports from survivors, compiled into debriefs and post-action assessments, are studied for both tactical lessons and as reminders of human resilience. The stories of those who acted selflessly in the face of overwhelming adversity inspire future generations, providing a human face to the strategic and tactical lessons drawn from the disaster. In the end, the sinking of the ships is remembered not only for the tactical shock it delivered, but also for the extraordinary courage of the men who fought, survived, and helped others survive amidst one of the most harrowing naval battles of World War II. In the hours and days following the catastrophic loss of HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse, the Royal Navy is forced to confront the immediate and sobering reality of the Pacific theater's new vulnerabilities. News of the attacks spreads quickly through Naval Command in Singapore and London, igniting a storm of concern among military strategists and politicians alike. The speed, coordination, and effectiveness of the Japanese aerial assault expose critical flaws in the previously held assumptions of naval supremacy and force planners to reassess doctrine, defense, and deployment in Southeast Asia. The initial response focuses on survivor recovery. Destroyers and patrol boats scour the waters around the sinking sites, searching for floating debris life rafts, and men clinging to wreckage. Weather conditions, oil slicks, and the scattered remnants of torpedoed ships make rescue operations perilous. Many survivors are exhausted, suffering from hypothermia, shock, and injuries sustained during the attacks. Medical teams aboard rescue vessels work tirelessly to stabilize the wounded, applying triage to prioritize those with life-threatening injuries, while still comforting those suffering psychological trauma. Reports and debriefings begin immediately. Survivor testimonies paint a harrowing picture. Crew members describe torpedo strikes, plunging decks, fires, and the relentless strafing from Japanese aircraft. Captain Leach and other senior officers provide detailed accounts of the ship's maneuvers, crew responses, and the progression of attacks. These narratives are crucial in shaping the Royal Navy's understanding of modern naval warfare, particularly the lethal effectiveness of coordinated torpedo bomber formations against capital ships without air cover. The loss also has strategic and psychological repercussions. Singapore, the key British naval base in the region, suddenly finds itself dangerously exposed. Military planners recognize that without aircraft carriers in the theater, battleships and cruisers alone are insufficient to counter Japanese air superiority. This realization prompts an urgent reevaluation of defensive strategies, including the deployment of additional anti-aircraft batteries, the repositioning of remaining vessels, and the prioritization of air reconnaissance to detect enemy formations earlier. Meanwhile, forensic recovery efforts are initiated. Naval engineers and divers begin surveying the wrecks of Prince of Wales and Repulse, documenting the damage caused by torpedoes and bombs. These investigations provide valuable insights into vulnerabilities of hull design, torpedo protection systems, and armor placement. The findings influence future shipbuilding, retrofitting, and tactical doctrines, emphasizing the integration of air defense and the coordination between surface, fleets, and carrier-based aircraft. Political consequences follow swiftly. In London, the Admiralty faces scrutiny over the decision to send capital ships into waters within reach of Japanese bombers without adequate air cover. Parliamentary inquiries question whether intelligence failures, misjudgments in risk assessment, or procedural rigidity contributed to the loss. While blame is distributed carefully, the event galvanizes public attention, underscoring the lethal potential of modern aerial warfare and the vulnerability of traditional battleships. Beyond the political and tactical implications, attention also turns to the human toll. Commemorations and memorials begin for those lost, both aboard the ships and in the waters around Malaya. Families are informed, and the names of the fallen are recorded in official lists and plaques. Survivors, carrying the weight of what they witnessed, recount their experiences in interviews and personal diaries, creating a living record of courage, tragedy, and perseverance. Their accounts emphasize heroism in the face of overwhelming odds and the importance of leadership, quick thinking, and camaraderie under fire. Efforts to recover salvaged equipment, shells, and ship components from the wrecks become a priority in the months following the battle. Even decades later, these wrecks remain sites of historical interest and maritime investigation, with occasional reports of unauthorized salvage operations. Each artifact recovered provides a tangible connection to the events of December 1941, reminding future generations of the bravery, sacrifice, and lessons of naval warfare during World War II. Ultimately, the aftermath of the sinking of Prince of Wales and Repulse reshapes both strategic planning and collective memory. Naval tactics evolve, doctrines are rewritten, and the event becomes a case study in the necessity of air cover for surface fleets. Survivor stories are passed down through generations, ensuring that the heroism, resilience, and tragic losses are never forgotten. The Royal Navy, though shaken, adapts, learns, and honors those who gave everything, using their sacrifice to prepare for the battles still to come in the Pacific theater. The sinking of HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse marks a turning point in naval strategy and the understanding of modern warfare. For the Royal Navy, the loss exposes the vulnerability of battleships operating without adequate air cover and forces a rapid reassessment of fleet tactics. Previously, capital ships were considered the ultimate deterrent against enemy navies. Their heavy armor and large caliber guns deemed sufficient to dominate any engagement at sea. December 10, 1941, shatters this assumption. Naval Command realizes that aircraft, when properly coordinated and executed, can neutralize even the most heavily armored ships. The Japanese attack demonstrates the effectiveness of torpedo bombers in combination with high-level bombers and strafing fighters, highlighting a new era in which air power becomes the decisive factor in naval engagements. The Royal Navy begins reevaluating the role of aircraft carriers, air reconnaissance, and the integration of air defense with surface fleet operations. Strategically, the loss also has profound consequences for the defense of Southeast Asia. Singapore, long considered the Gibraltar of the East, now stands exposed. Without the Prince of Wales and Repulse, the British lose their primary line of defense against Japanese advances along the Malayan Peninsula. Plans to reinforce the region must be accelerated, emphasizing the deployment of air assets, fortified positions, and naval task forces capable of countering Japan's growing air superiority. The psychological impact on both military personnel and civilian populations is significant, as the sudden loss of pride and firepower undermines confidence in the British Empire's ability to defend its far-flung colonies. Lessons drawn from the disaster extend beyond the immediate theater of operations. Fleet doctrine is scrutinized, emphasizing flexibility, coordination, and the necessity of protecting capital ships with both fighter cover and early warning systems. Naval training incorporates simulated air attacks, advanced gunnery exercises, and strategies for evading torpedoes and bombs. The incident catalyzes investment in radar, anti-aircraft weaponry, and communications protocols, ensuring that future engagements account for the capabilities of fast-moving enemy aircraft. In addition, the attack reshapes command philosophy. Admirals and captains must now consider the interplay between air and sea power in operational planning. Risk assessment protocols are revised to account for the presence of enemy aircraft, and decision-making processes adapt to incorporate rapid intelligence reporting, allowing commanders to respond to threats before they reach decisive range. The sinking underscores the importance of decentralized command, empowering individual captains to make split-second tactical decisions under fire while maintaining cohesion within the fleet. Internationally, the incident does not go unnoticed. Allied nations recognized the changing nature of naval warfare, accelerating the development of carrier task forces and integrated air defense. Naval engineering shifts toward faster, more agile ships with improved anti-aircraft capabilities. Battleship construction continues, but designers and strategists now understand that armor alone cannot guarantee survival against aerial threats. Lessons learned from the Malayan coast extend across the globe, informing Allied strategies in the Atlantic, Mediterranean, and Pacific theaters. Finally, the human dimension of the tragedy influences military culture and morale. Stories of heroism aboard the Prince of Wales and Repulse, from officers like Captain Leach to the ordinary sailors who risked everything to save their comrades, become foundational narratives in Royal Navy training and tradition. Survivors' accounts emphasize courage, resilience, and lead 10, legacy and commemoration. Sinking of HMS Prince of Wales and Repulse resonates far beyond the immediate aftermath of December 10, 1941. That the ships themselves are lost beneath the waves off the coast of Malaya. Their legacy endures through historical study, memorials, and the stories of courage and sacrifice passed down through generations. The events surrounding their final hours become emblematic of the bravery, skill, and dedication of naval personnel operating under extreme duress in the United Kingdom. The loss sparks widespread reflection on the state of the Royal Navy and the vulnerability of even the most modern battleships. Public accounts emphasize the heroism of officers like Captain John Jack Leach and Captain William Tennant, whose decisive actions and leadership saved hundreds of lives. Their names, along with those of Admiral Sir Tom Phillips and countless sailors, become synonymous with courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Memorials are erected in naval bases, museums, and towns across Britain, ensuring that their contributions are remembered and honored internationally. Historians and military strategists study the sinking in detail. The event becomes a pivotal case study in naval warfare courses, illustrating the dangers of underestimating air power and the importance of integrated fleet operations. The lessons derived from the attack influence ship design, leading to improvements in anti-aircraft weaponry, radar systems, and damage control procedures. Naval architects examine the vulnerabilities exposed during the assault, designing future warships with better compartmentalization, faster maneuverability, and improved communication networks to prevent similar losses. Survivor accounts also play a vital role in preserving the human dimension of the disaster. Stories of sailors navigating a listing deck, rescuing their comrades, and improvising under fire are collected in oral histories, books, and documentaries. These narratives highlight the resilience and ingenuity required to survive such extreme circumstances. For generations of naval personnel, these accounts serve as both inspiration and a reminder of the stakes inherent in warfare at sea. In recent years, efforts to protect and study the wrecks have brought renewed attention. Maritime archaeologists document the remains of the Prince of Wales and Repulse, mapping the debris fields and recovering artifacts that shed light on the lives of those aboard. These endeavors preserve tangible connections to the past, allowing historians and the public alike to engage with the material history of the ships. Incidents such as the 2023 seizure of the Chinese dredger Chuanhong 68 underscore the continuing significance of the wrecks. reminding the world of the enduring legacy of the ships and the complex issues surrounding maritime preservation. Commemorative events, including anniversaries, wreath-laying ceremonies, and naval parades, honor the memory of the fallen. On these occasions, veterans, descendants, and military officials gather to reflect on the sacrifices made and the lessons learned. The stories of heroism, leadership, and collective endurance are recounted, ensuring that the names of those lost and the significance of their service remain alive in public. Memory, the Prince of Wales, and Repulse also become cultural symbols, representing both the might of the Royal Navy and the transformative impact of air power on naval warfare. They appear in films, literature, and historical exhibits, capturing the imagination of audiences while educating them about the realities of modern combat. Their story reinforces themes of courage, duty, and resilience, values central to naval tradition and military service. Ultimately, the legacy of HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse transcends the technical and tactical lessons learned. It is a testament to human courage, leadership, and the unyielding spirit of those who serve at sea. Though the ships no longer sail the oceans, their stories continue to influence naval strategy, honor the fallen, and inspire future generations of sailors. The memory of December 10th, 1941, endures as a powerful reminder that bravery and sacrifice define the essence of military service, and that the lessons of history shape the vessels, crews, and strategies of tomorrow.